And welcome to the Naked Parent Podcast. My name's Chad Ratliff, and I'm your host of the show. And today I am very excited to bring a topic of self improvement and self knowledge to you by having Giovanna Franklin on the show, who's a wife and mother of two, and we're gonna unpack self improvement and self knowledge. But for starters, Giovanna, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so thrilled.
Yeah, we're excited to meet you and learn more about your story. And talking to you a little bit before the show, I'm really excited to talk to you about um, uh, self improvement and self knowledge, and how you utilize those things in your life, and how you've utilized that in finding out more about your child. Do you have two children?
Yes.
And is one child with special needs, or?
Yes. So my eldest daughter, she's fine. She's great. And then my son came along 2 years after my daughter, and he was diagnosed with autism when he was about 4 years old,
And what
and
ages
he's now
are
nearly
the?
12.
He's 12.
Yeah, nearly Christmas Day. So Christmas Day will be 12.
And was there signs? How early did signs start kind of telling you that maybe something was different?
Um, Looking back, I would say right when I was pregnant, because I could feel him. I didn't know if he was a boy or a girl, but I could feel he was moving in a kind of jerky way. It wasn't, I remember my daughter was really graceful when she was in my tummy. I remember I could visualize her kind of dancing. She was moving all the time, but it was very graceful, very gentle movement. With my son, I remember feeling really kind of, I thought he was kind of elbowing me. And towards the end, I thought that increased, and I felt that he was desperate to get out. He was desperate to show up, present himself, and he did actually. He was born about 2 weeks earlier than scheduled, so he wasn't supposed to be born on Christmas Day. So we were actually on holiday visiting family at the time, and so surprise. And he was a super quick birth. And so, yeah, there was something different about him. And his screams when he was hungry were beyond the normal screams of a baby. Everything was different. He was sleeping. He was started sleeping through the night at 3 months, like my daughter. But when he was awake, it just wouldn't stop. There was no stopping him. He was incredibly quick, incredibly curious as well. But I thought, he's a boy. I was used to my girl, and girls are different. And I remember the difference between myself and my brother when we were growing up. And I was super quiet, and my brother's nickname was Attila the Hun. So to give you an idea. And so I thought, okay, that's what boys do. And okay. But then he was not speaking. He kept babbling. So there were, yeah, looking back, there were signs, but we were kind of in denial for a long time, I suppose, and that's probably why the diagnosis didn't come earlier than that. So yeah, I suppose I don't know what happened. There is no history of autism in my family or anything like that. So, but I know that it's not an inherited condition, and so it's just one of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How? And then and then and what we started talking about before the show that I found so interesting is you have a philosophy which isn't, I wouldn't say it's unique to just you, but you seem to be very vigilant with how you approach challenges in your life. Is that fair to say? So can you share
Yes, yeah.
share a little bit about how you and your husband handled the this newfound knowledge of your son being on the autism spectrum?
So, of course, it's not a unique perspective. So, I read Pollyanna when I was a kid, and I know it sounds really silly, but it really had a massive impact on me. I couldn't tell you the story. I can't remember what the plot was, but it was just this thing that there is always a silver lining. It doesn't matter what happens to you, it matters how you react. And if you look, and sometimes you have to look harder, sometimes you have to really, really look closely, but there will be an opportunity, and it will be an opportunity for you to grow. When things are easy, there's nothing for you to do, right? And there's nothing for you to learn. Things just happen to you, and yeah, okay. But it's when we get a challenge that we grow, we learn something new. So the diagnosis came at the end of a 10-year period, which was pretty challenging. So it was one thing after the other. And the last few things were my mom passed away shortly before, and then she had Parkinson's, so it was a long illness. My auntie passed away right a year after that, and I was very close to her. So there were lots of things happening, and then this was kind of like almost the last straw, and I was like, really? Have I done something? But I thought, okay, you know what? This is another thing. Just let's do something. Like I was saying to you, I'm a very solution driven person. When somebody says to me, "Oh, this is happening. I've got this problem," my first knee jerk reaction is, "Ooh, let's see what can we do? What can we do?" To the point that it's annoying sometimes to other people. And now I actually ask people when they tell me their problems, are you asking for a solution? Do you want me to
Yeah.
help you? Or are you just venting? Because let me know, because that way, I'll be quiet then.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I if there is something, there's always something you can do. My mom used to say, only when you're dead, there's nothing you can do. Okay, that's the
Yes.
end of the line for sure. But
So I agree with you, but I took it what I, you were able to kick that into gear right away. Did you say you and your husband decided to take one night to sort of
yeah,
grieve
yes.
the, so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we came back from the pediatrician's office. It was an afternoon. They gave us the verdict.
Right.
And okay, so on the way home, we stopped by a supermarket, and we got something for dinner, a bottle of wine. We were not talking very much. And okay, we just had dinner, we put the kids to bed, and then we just sat down with a bottle between us, and we had a couple of drinks, and we kind of, yeah, commiserated each other for a little bit. But my husband is very much like me. He is very upbeat, and he said to me, listen, this is not the end of anything. This is something that we can do something about. I don't know what, but it's not. What he said to me was, autism is not a static condition, whatever it is, because he's a teacher and he actually works with children on the spectrum in his school.
Oh, okay.
And so he said to me, what I can see from my professional experience is that they can change, they can improve, we can teach, we can do things. So whatever happens, we can do this. And so literally the next day, I decided I had to, first of all, understand what this is, what autism is, because the doctors were not helping at all. I mean, they give us a leaflet before we left that said, it was kind of like, The Simpsons when Homer gets that leaflet, so you're going to die. And it was a leaflet that was like, so your child is autistic. What?
Wow.
And it's that thing. And the phrase that really hit me was, and here are some tips on how to cope with your child with autism.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't want to cope. I really don't like that word at all. That's not what I want. That's not the relationship I want to have with my child. Like cope, like it's a burden, like it's a nuisance or something I have to put up with. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not doing that. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not doing that. And so I went out and I wanted to find some books. And I went, and it's amazing when, you call it serendipity, you call it, God, whatever you want to call it. But I went out, I took the train, I went to downtown, to the city center, and I went to the bookshop. And the first thing I see when I go into the bookshop, on the left-hand side, the whole wall was covered in books by Temple Grandin, The Autistic Brain.
Wow.
Okay. Never heard of Temple Grandin. I didn't know who she was. I learned afterwards. I don't know if you're familiar with her, her work. But the book was called The Autistic Brain, so I've got to read it, right?
Yeah.
And that was the first of many books that I started to read on the subject. And I wanted to know everything about the latest medical studies, research. That's when I found out about biomedicine, all this kind of stuff that I never thought in a million years I was going to immerse myself. I've never been a science person. I did humanities at university. I've never liked science or medicine or anything like that. And here I was, but needs must. And that was the start. And then from there, I started searching on the internet, and I found forums with other parents, and I started to reach out, and I started doing all sorts of. I wanted to find a treatment. I wanted to find some solution, because when the doctor said to me, okay, we don't know what autism is. We don't know where it comes from, but we know it's incurable. And I'm like, did you even try? How do you know it's incurable if you didn't try? You don't know what it is. And so what do you know, by the way? They just have their check, and no disrespect. Okay, I know they're doctors, they studied and everything, but that made me even more angry, because I thought, well, aren't you curious? Where's the professional curiosity or the scientific curiosity there? So I thought, no, I'm going to try and do something. And so that started the whole journey. And then along that, looking and researching and lots of vitamins and lots of supplements and lots of stuff, I stumbled into this thing called homeopathy, because I was looking on internet and I found this lady who is a homeopath, and she was not far from me, and her website said I specialize in helping children with autism. And I thought, okay, I have no idea what this is. But I looked at her credentials and where she studied and everything, and she looked legit. Yeah. And so I called her up, and we started, and she started giving him something. It was like a small little sugar pill, looked like. And my son started to react to that, and he started to kind of look different. It was very subtle. His eyes started to get more into focus, like more present. He was looking at me, and I could see there was something there. He was not speaking at the time, by the way. And so I asked her, I said, what is this again? How does that work? And so she said, you know what, there's a book that you can read, and it's Miranda Castro's Materia Medica, which is one of the basic books for homeopathy. So I read the introduction, and I read about what homeopathy is, how it came about, what it does. how, the holistic principle, the natural principle. And I got goosebumps, and I was like, where has this stuff been all my life? Why did I not know about this? Why? And I ended up doing so much reading about this and so much research that I thought, why don't I train? And so I asked my homeopath, where did you study? So she studied in London at the university, the Faculty of Homeopathy in London, and that's a bit too far for me because I'm in Scotland. And so I looked at other options, and I found the school where I eventually started my course. And long story short, I graduated. In the meantime, I could do this because in the meantime, my son was improving, and he
Wow.
started to speak. And it wasn't overnight. It wasn't, whoa, magic. But it started to speak one word every day, one new word every day. And
Wow.
then, short sentences, a little longer sentence, 3-word sentences, 4-word sentences, painfully slow, painfully slow.
Yeah.
But it calmed down because we had terrible issues with aggressive behavior, and that was very distressing. That was really bad because we didn't know where that was coming from at the beginning. You think, well, we don't have that behavior, we don't show
Right.
that behavior, so where does that come from? I didn't know at the time where it was coming from. And so as he became more settled and happier, and he didn't need 24/7, looking, watching. Then I had time to do my reading, my studying, and everything else. And so everything slowly kind of started to fall into place, and I became really, really passionate about this modality that can do so much. I'm not saying it's a miracle. It doesn't. I don't talk about cure or recover or anything. I'm just saying there's stuff you can do
Yes.
to improve your life. It's about quality of life, right? At the end of the day. And that's what I wanted. And I'm still working on my son. Of course, you always work on your children. I mean,
Yes.
you don't just, okay, you're okay now.
Yeah.
Get off you go. They're still growing. Is nearly 12. My daughter is 14. So, of course, but now we have, we have a happy life. We have an easier life. And I think, and if I learn to do that, why would I not share it with other
Right.
people?
Right.
So
Awesome.
that's what I'm doing now.
What's the name of the book again? The book that you
Uh,
said, the first introduction to the
oh
home.
yeah, it's called it's Miranda Castro. Miranda
Mira.
Castro is a very famous homeopath, and it's the Materia Medica, complete handbook of Materia Medica, and it's a book that has that is perfect for beginners, for mothers, because it has a lot of advice on acute, colds, flu, coughs, family. It's a family book, basically. And it's the first one that everybody tells people who want to start with homeopathy. And it's very, very simple.
So are you working with people, families? Is that what stage are you at with your training now?
Yes, so I graduated a few years ago, and I started working right off the bat. And first, to be honest, I didn't want to be the autism specialist. I don't even know why. I just wanted to work with everybody. It's like being a GP. You work with people who come with different conditions, IBS or
Nice.
digestive issues or thyroid issues. And I was happy with that. It's a good variety. But then working with other colleagues, they were saying to me, why don't you specialize? Why do not have your own niche? And why don't you choose this? You know so much about autism because you live in it, you've lived it. And so I thought, all right, okay. And I was already working with some families with children with autism or ADHD. And so I decided, okay, let's do this. And so now I primarily work with families with children with autism. It's intense. It's intensive work because obviously you work through the parents, typically through the mother. So you take on the pain as well. It's not a cold clinical relationship because it's a holistic modality. So everything comes into play: your emotions, your feelings, as well as the physical symptoms. And of course, you're taking the case through the parents, through the mother, typically because the child usually is very young or maybe nonverbal and so on. And so you see the stress the mother is going through. And of course, what I try to do is help the parents as well, which sometimes is hard to do purely because as a mother, you're always saying, no, don't worry about me, I'm fine. Just, let's talk about my son. And I'm like, yes, but unless you are really well in yourself, emotionally as well as physically, you cannot look after anybody else. So it is intensive work, but at the same time, it's so rewarding when you see even the small results. I'm not talking about, like I said, it's not a miracle cure or anything, but when you go from, a child who can only eat 3 things, okay, and like my son used to eat 3 things, basically pasta with pesto sauce, fish fingers, and biscuits.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was it. You can't go to a restaurant. You cannot go on holiday. If you go on holiday, you have to pack the food that he eats because it can be a problem if it's a different brand, right? So
Right.
imagine just fixing that. When my son started to eat, he just started literally with a piece of sausage from his sister's plate. For some reason, he became curious and he put it in his mouth and he was like, and it started from there, and now he can eat anything. So even just one thing, or sleep. I know some children who've never slept a whole night.
Yeah.
Even with melatonin makes you fall asleep, but it doesn't keep you asleep.
Right.
So you still wake up during the night. And if one member of the family doesn't sleep, the whole family doesn't sleep.
That's right.
And so, you know what it's like. So even improving on that, the quality of life is transformed, So yeah, your child is still autistic. I know, but but now you can sleep.
Can you like for the listeners, and I'm one of them who like homeopathy or what, I can't even say the word. What does this look like? What are some of the things that you're doing with these families to get these incremental improvements? What are some, can you paint a picture that I can maybe understand?
Sure. Well, it looks very much like going to almost any therapist. So you tell me, I usually send out a form so you can put in your medical information, just basic timeline birth. I start from the pregnancy, when it's about children, because sometimes, not all the time, but what happens during the pregnancy, if the mother was under stress, for example, or if she was unwell during pregnancy, if there was medication involved. I mean, there may be some clues. The birth as well. Some births are traumatic, and that can make a difference. My son was born with forceps, for example. And at the time, everything was fine. I mean, it didn't look, there was no damage, no visible damage at all. And then later on, I realized with a chiropractor, with the help of a chiropractor, that the forceps had kind of messed up the cranial plates, even though you couldn't see anything from the outside. And so craniosacral is another tool that you can use, for example, in these cases. But apart from that, then there's other things that can happen if the baby's premature, lots of things. So I take the history, basically, and then I take the symptoms, the current symptoms. And what I'm trying to do is form a picture. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. I want to see what your child is like. And it's not just about the symptoms, the physical symptoms, the eating, the sleeping or not sleeping. I go through everything basically, but it's also about your child as an individual. What does he like doing? How does he play? What does he enjoy? What makes it happy? Or what's he scared of? What are his fears? So I'm trying to get a complete picture, because this is a holistic modality. And so everybody is different. So you need to get to the heart of the person. And then based on that, the remedies, homeopathic medicines are called remedies, and there are thousands of different remedies. Wow. They are made from plants, minerals, from just about anything. They're totally natural. And the idea is that you find the right match between the medicine and the individual. And so that's the way it works. It's like the medicine itself is only there to stimulate your immune system. And so I always explain it this way. It's like acupuncture, because everybody knows what acupuncture is, but without the needles. So acupuncture, the needles, they don't have any medicine in them. The needles don't do anything. They are just needles. The way that it works is that the therapist puts the needles in some specific points in your body so that your immune system is stimulated. And so your body does the healing. It's not the needles. And in the same way, the homeopathic medicine, the remedies, they don't do anything in themselves. They stimulate your immune system, because the basic belief is that we can all heal. We all have the tools, the equipment to heal. Sometimes we get stuck, and sometimes we get really, really stuck.
Yeah.
And so we need a kind of push. and that's all it is. So your body can heal to the best of its abilities. And that's important to understand, because of course everybody says to me, okay, how much improvements can I see?
Right.
What's the limit? And nobody knows that. It really depends on your own body, your own immune system, what the cards that you've been dealt, basically, the DNA that we were born with. These are the cards that we were dealt. But even with bad cards, I'm not a poker player, I don't know what I'm talking about here, but even if you have bad cards, if you are a good player, you can make the most of what you have. That's what I'm saying.
I see. Yeah, because so my second child is he's 12 now, and he's nonverbal, and he's very he's very low functioning, wears a diaper, and so I hear, do the brain map, do the brain mapping, and then treatment, this homeopathy, and it's like, I don't, where therapies, ABA, all the different types of treatment, it's like, where, what do I do? So I'm imagining our listeners saying, okay, I want to try, we want to try everything, right? And it's just, it can be challenging to know where to invest time, money, and energy, right? And so that's kind of like something that comes to mind. I mean, is this an expensive process to go kind of through this kind of treatment?
This is a very good question. And the answer is no, it's not expensive. And that's the best kept secret about homeopathy. And I'm guessing the reason why, as a modality, it's not that well known or well pushed. I know how cost effective it is, because before coming to homeopathy, I tried everything else that you mentioned. So I tried biomedicine before, because I realized, and I believe, that it is a medical condition. And so,
okay,
yes, ABA, I tried ABA. It didn't really worked out. It's not popular over here, by the way. In the UK, it almost doesn't exist. So I had to find somebody from another town. So the cost was, but anyway, what else did I try? At biomedical. So I realized that there was something that is, I learned about the gut-brain connection, and the gut dysbiosis and all this good stuff. And I learned that in the States, you guys are much more advanced in this kind of research. So I reached out to a biomedical doctor in Washington, and we did DNA tests. We did all sorts of that. Tests are expensive. Yeah. And then we did a few consultations, and he sent me a lot of supplements. If I had to put a figure, I spent a few $1,000s in that process, plus the ABA that I did, and it didn't work. I mean, I'm just saying that all that stuff didn't work, by the way. But I did try, because like you say, you try it. My thing was, I'm going to try everything as long as it's natural, non-invasive, and it doesn't bankrupt me. Okay. Yes. So yes. I was willing to try all this stuff, and I did. And then when it came to homeopathy, I realized that it's a fraction of what I actually spent. And so one of the questions that I saw that you had in your list, what do you wish that you knew before? I wish I knew somebody who would say to me, hey, look, you can do this. Look, I've done this. Da, da, da. I had to do an awful lot of trial and error before I came to homeopathy. And so it's one of the things that I tell the parents. I know how expensive it is. I know that homeopathy is not covered by insurance. If you are in the US, I work with a lot of families in the US, and so I understand that. But at the same time, compared to what the cost would be for biomedicine, it doesn't compare. Because the thing is, you don't need homeopathy forever. You need it for a few months, and then once you start going under your own steam, You need it maybe once every few months. And what you're paying for is the consultation you're paying for, the expertise, and what I do. The medicine themselves, they are like $10.
Wow.
I mean, and they last forever, by the way, because you need a nano micro quantity. And that's why there's no patenting in homeopathy. There is no massive profit margins. That's why you don't see adverts. You don't see, TV programs brought to you from, by blah blah blah. No.
Wow, that's great to know. It's amazing. And so you said you do work with, it's not something that you have to be in person.
No, it works perfectly well online, and it's something that I found out straight away because I started to connect with Facebook groups of other mothers, and because of the distance, I was always working online via Zoom, things like that. It's not a hands-on. I don't need to touch anybody. I just need to talk and listen, basically. Mostly listen.
That's great. So, and maybe we can put something in the show notes, but what's the best way for people to get a hold of you if they wanted to find out more about what it is that you provide?
My website is called homeopathyheal.co.uk. So that's HOMEOPATHYHEAL.co.uk. But I'm also on Facebook. I have a group that's specific for autism, and it's called Autism Solutions. Very simple.
And it's the homeopathy heal dot what?
.co.uk.
.co.uk, and then Autism Solutions on Facebook. Okay, well, that's great to know. And what are some of the how do you know that some of the changes, when they're gradual, take time? How do you know that it correlates with the work that you do?
That's another very good question. So typically, the parents that I work with, of course, they're trying lots of stuff at the same time. Usually what happens is that 99% of people come to me, to homeopathy in general, as a last resort, because of course nobody knows that it exists, and that's what I did as well, right? So they've already been trying lots of supplements. So typically the parents that I've been trying probiotics for months, and omega-3 and omega-6 and the GAPS diet and all this and that, and it's not working, or we've been doing it for so long and we've seen so little results. And so, you put in something new and things start to shift. So you know that what you're doing is working.
I see.
In other circumstances, if they're doing something that is a bit more complex, like chelation, for example. Chelation, I don't know if you're familiar with the protocol. It's detox. And it's a procedure that I personally, I didn't try because it's quite invasive. It's done through IV. And you have to do it. It's very hard. You have to do it every 3 hours, day and night. And I thought it's a bit heavy for me. But some parents, sorry?
It can be dangerous too, correct? Like you have to know, or
you need to. I don't think it's done in this country. I don't think it's it would be allowed. I know some parents in the US, but you do work with a nurse, a professional. You have to work with a professional therapist. But even so, I mean, it is invasive from from the physical point of view. It's
Is it
painful.
considered homeopathy?
Sorry?
Is this process or is this treatment considered homeopathy?
No, no.
Oh,
But
something.
some parents come to me and they are doing this, and so that's when I say, okay, can you just stop that,
Uh-huh.
suspend that if you want to work with me, because I really want to see a clear picture.
I
And
see.
that's how I know. So that's a bit too heavy. If you're taking supplements, if you're taking even other medication, prescribed medication, that's absolutely fine. It's totally compatible with anything else. But in terms of your question, yeah, I'd rather add things one at a time so that you know which one is doing what.
Right.
Uh, so
It's
yeah,
very, it's very exciting. I mean, we're all looking for the best. We want the best for our children. Um, a lot of times we don't know what to do. I mean, I have therapists in and out of the house. I mean, we have we have IEPs. We're the special foods that we're trying to take, and we got special chairs. Um, we're trying all these things. I didn't know that this was a pathway that I can try. So
yeah, one of the things, I was kind of lucky because over here, like I said, we don't have ABA. Schools don't really offer anything. The best they can do is maybe speech therapy, and even that we didn't get because our speech therapist basically said, well, he's never going to speak because he doesn't have a physical impediment, a
yeah,
speech impediment. It's just he's autistic, so he's not going to speak. So I
right.
can't do anything. Okay. So that was all the speech therapy that we got. And so I had to find something else. And once I realized that it is actually an internal problem because it is a medical physical issue, then I
Uh-huh.
thought, okay, so all the therapy in the world is not going to make difference until you sort out what's going on inside your child.
I see.
Um, and even the supplements and the B12 and this and that, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't work. In our case, they didn't work at all. And then I thought, okay, you really need to get the junk out of your child, because the basic issue, the main issue that 99.9% of autistic kids have is that they cannot detox from all the pollutants that we all get exposed to. And so you need to get the stuff out, the rubbish out, and then you can start adding supplements and other things that I work with as well as homeopathy. I also got qualification in nutrition because I think that food is super important. But even before doing the diet, before doing the supplements, get the gut sorted out, get the junk out, and then put the stuff back in and repair and replenish uh, what needs to be replenished, basically. Because yes, there are vitamin deficiencies, B12 for sure. But a lot of the times I tried to give B12 to my son. Initially, he went nuts. It was like giving him crack cocaine. He was absolutely
Wow.
unbelievable. He couldn't take it. Couldn't go anywhere near B12. Now he can, but
Hmm.
that was this thing. I was working with another homeopath, and he said to me, "Stop giving him stuff. You need to get the junk out first, and then you can put it back in." So I learned from that. But I had to try first. I made a lot of mistakes. So that's something else that I can share. Actually, the mistakes are the best part, the
Yeah.
best thing I can offer, because at least, if I tell parents, what not to do, you can save a lot of time, you can save a lot of money.
So just to clarify, you do the you work with the gut as well as the other pieces that you were talking about.
Yes, but holistically,
I
not
see.
with supplement, because it's a much more gentle way. When you're doing detox in other ways with supplements, you get a lot of reaction, which is basically the bad bacteria, the bad stuff pushing back against this, and you get a lot of reaction. For example, if you heard of diflucan, which is an antifungal, and it's given to children for candida. Candida is, yeast overgrowth, and it's a very common issue. And the more candida you have, the more severe the aggravation when you use antibiotics, antifungal, and so on and so on. So yeah, you can ride it out if you're strong enough. But first of all, your child is suffering. The reason why the aggravation in behavior especially happens is because obviously the child is suffering. I mean, the stomach is probably in pain, and maybe he cannot even tell you.
Hmm.
And of course, everybody suffers because the behavior goes worse. So that's what I try to avoid, basically. And so if I can find a more gentle way to do things, why not? I mean, why you don't have to suffer if
Right.
if you can help it, right? So that's the other advantage actually of homeopathy, is way more gentle, because it's working with your body, it's not working against it. Everything in Western medicine is anti something. It's antibacterial, it's antibiotic, it's anti-parasite, it's a war, it's always a war. And
Interesting.
homeopathy is the opposite. It's working with you, even with your illness, whatever it is.
This is very fascinating, and I know you're busy, and I don't want to take all of your time. Do you have a recommendation for the listeners, for parents out there, on how, any thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners with the knowledge that you have? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Don't give up.
Recommendations?
Keep looking. Look around you. There are things that you can do. Um, just educate yourself. Read a lot. I mean, homeopathy, I think, of course, I'm biased, I think it's the best thing, but there are other things. um, just look around. My If you are naturally minded, there are other things that you can do. I've always been leaning towards natural medicine anyway. So this is what I do. There are other modalities that you can look for. So, but the bottom line is don't give up.
Don't give
Don't give
up.
up.
It can be overwhelming though. Like it can there's just a lot of information, and with the stress of life, and it just can be overwhelming. And I appreciate the encouragement. Um, it just, I yeah, I'm looking forward to looking into it myself more. So I appreciate that you brought it to our attention, because it isn't something that is talked about a lot. It's not something that people know a lot about, at least not the people I've spoken with. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show today and tell us a little bit about homeopathy, um, and yeah, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you invited me. It came out of the blue, so I'm really happy connecting with more people from all over the world. It's amazing.
Yes, so I'll be in touch with you, and we'll leave information, if it's okay for others, if they want to reach out to you and learn more.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you so much,
Okay.
and I wish you all the
Thank
best.
you.
And we'll be in touch
Thank
soon.
you.
Wonderful day.
Okay. Thank you. Bye
Bye bye.
bye.